Number 17, this is my last question for football. Where does NIL legislation leave Indiana amongst the pack? Obviously, Signetti had the quote fest article a couple weeks ago saying there are teams spending $40 million. They then go head to head with Miami, or not head to head. There's a bunch of other schools in there, but essentially they go after the same recruit as Miami, and Miami just drops the bag in front of the kid, and that's that. So they're obviously not able to hang in that regard, right? If money is the only object, then they're out of that race. But at the same time, like we talked about last week with the class of 26, it's not always about money. If you come to Indiana, you'll get paid. Don't worry. Kelly School of Business, NIL agents saying Indiana's great to work with. Those aren't things Indiana athletes aren't signing deals that don't happen. That's just not something that happens. But at the same time, you're not going to get a stupid amount of money to come and sit on the bench. They have to spend a little bit more smartly. And so with the way things are looking, with the way NIL legislation keeps getting pushed back, the House will make a decision on it, different voices. And now there's a whole committee with Saban and the booster from Texas Tech, and they don't want players to be employees when the answer is so obvious that they should be employees. And it's an absolute shit show, but I am confident in the fact that Indiana has the right people manning that ship, and they're doing it the right way. And as long as they're compliant within the rules and they're treating the kids the right way, and that's kind of really all I care about. So obviously Signetti is going to be able to build successful rosters, and we'll see what happens, and we'll see if they're able to kind of figure this stuff out legally. But right now it's an absolute clusterfuck. Those are the questions for football. I got some basketball questions as well. This is something that I basically closed the door on last week because I was all from what I'm seeing from people on Twitter and from Time in particular, this is all but done. But do Anthony Leal and Luke Goody get cleared? And they're both trying to get waivers to come back. People are wondering left and right how Anthony Leal has eligibility left. Don't ask me. I don't know. I don't know how any of these guys have eligibility left. But if you look at some of the cases that the NCAA is approving, a lot of these things line up. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that those two guys are going to be on this roster. And that puts the Indiana scholarship count at 13. Do you think another great year that NIL at IU will go to the next level? It's a great question. I would have to imagine yes, because I think if you look at Signetti's ability to inspire people with no base, now inspire people with 1 year base. I just think Indiana still has so much room to grow as a program. They hooked in the really hardcore fans, for sure. They hooked in students. Obviously, the team's good. They hooked in the family, the people around. But it's when do you become an attraction? When are people flying out of their when are the NFL players going out of their way to come down to Bloomington to go to games to see the team play? That's, I think, when you're going to start seeing it go to another level, because they're less than an hour away from Indianapolis. Obviously, if you in there, you know that. When you start seeing those obviously former players come back, and you start seeing the next tier of I guess I'll call it celebrity, for lack of a better word, go out of their way to start appearing in Bloomington, that's when the NIL is going to go to the next level. Have you heard anything regarding expanding or improving the stadium? Check out Respectable Adam's Twitter. He's been tweeting about it all the time. I believe Mellencamp, which is the practice facility, just got new turf. They're replacing the lights and all that good stuff. The stadium, I'm in full support of stadium expansion. I'm not sure if that's a project that they've looked into yet, but I would imagine the better they play, the more money that comes in. They're not going to have a choice, and it needs upgrades. So, but yeah, definitely check out Respectable Adam on Twitter. He's all over that stuff. Question number 18. Yeah, John says Sig is building the next Alabama. He has the blueprint. 100% agree. He is the blueprint. He literally is the blueprint. Question 18. Who starts at center? And then question 18.5 being, can you succeed without a true one? And does it even matter? So I honestly think after doing the skim dive of the Indiana basketball roster, that Reed Bailey is going to end up starting at center. I know he's not a true center. He's not a great rebounder for his size. I think he averaged under 4 rebounds a game last year, and he's 6'11". But just based on size alone and the offensive talent they have on the court, I feel like that's the way they're going to go, at least early. Sam Alexis, another guy, doesn't have the prototypical center size. He's listed at 6'8", but he's a guy who averaged 10 and 9 at Chattanooga before transferring to Florida and didn't do much there. So I wouldn't be surprised at some point if you see Sam Alexis start there, but I do think Reed Bailey ends up starting there. And then like I've been thinking about this a lot, but in terms of the way Indiana's roster is constructed, is like, can you succeed in the Big Ten without true bigs? And I guess we'll find out, because that's not really the way the majority of the conference has chosen to build their rosters. At the same time, like Brad's talked about over and over again, like the most important thing is tournament success. And the Big Ten admittedly hasn't been the best in March. Michigan State was the last winner. That was in 2000 or something like that. So I think that the way the Indiana team is built, this specific one, they're built more for March than they are for the Big Ten. And I think they have the ability, the talent, and I think the coaching staff is good enough where they can win enough games to get into the tournament. And then it's just about making noise. And I think this specific team is more set up for the tournament than they are for the Big Ten. So will they be able to get there? I guess that remains to be seen. Will the size end up affecting them in a negative way? We'll see. But I think if they can get into the dance, like get hot shooting, bunch of ball handlers, like guard heavy, like high offensive output, like, yeah, you can do some damage. Number 19, how deep will the Indiana rotation go? And it really is an interesting question, because especially if you bring Leal and Goody back, like you're looking at Enright or Drake as your second or third point guard. You're looking at Miles or Leal as your second or third shooting guard if Leal is not starting. If Leal is starting, you're looking at a guy like Nick Dorn coming off the bench. You're not really, probably didn't bring in Lamar Wilkerson over Kentucky to sit on the bench, right? But they're legitimately 13 deep if all these guys come back. Now, maybe you say like a guy like Jason Drake, who's coming from Drexel, isn't ready to play in the Big Ten, or like Josiah Miles and Josh Harris, who are the two North Florida guys, like maybe they aren't ready to play initially in the Big Ten. But they brought in a lot of like athletic, like I wouldn't say ball dominant, but guys comfortable with the ball in their hand who could shoot threes. And I think we legitimately might see, like, at least at some points in the season, at least 10, 11 guys, which sounds crazy. But if all these guys justify playing time, like who am I to say? Question 20, how quickly will DDV and co be able to mobilize Indiana's budget? I have to say, I've been surprised at the amount of 2026 5-stars Indiana's been offering on the basketball side. Obviously, Indiana, like you're Indiana, you're the flagship university of a state that cares more about basketball than anybody in the country. So like you should be a good basketball team. You should be able to both recruit your state and recruit really well at a national level. But we talk about football and NIL and Indiana not being at the top of the spend list when it comes to football, but for basketball, they are at the top of the spend list. And if DeVries is able to like mobilize that budget quickly and have a plan in place to attack the class of 26, like it could be a really, really talented freshman class coming in, on top of the ability that, like, say what you want about how quickly it took DeVries to build the roster. And I personally don't think it took that long, but they filled 10 spots, 10 spots from the transfer portal. And I guess one is Tucker DeVries, right? So you count that if you want. Like they can go out and use the portal. I'm not worried about that. And DeVries has a history of recruiting. Coach Johnson has a history of recruiting. The coach they just brought in from Tennessee has a history as a recruit, like or in recruiting. Like these guys are out on the trail. They're hitting it hard. I think Drew Adams, I believe is his name. He spoke to Hoosiers Connect today. He talked about like he hasn't even been able to put his feet on the ground yet. They've just been recruiting the whole time. So they're going to work quickly. And I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana's class of 26 looks a lot, I guess, nicer, or I don't want to say familiar because I don't know how familiar it'd be for Indiana fans, but just like in terms of how Indiana fans perceive the way their basketball team should recruit. I think he's going to be able to move quickly. What do we got? Moving to basketball, of all the newcomers, freshmen, or transfers, who has the chance to make an immediate impact, and who might be more of a long-term piece? In terms of immediate impact, it's hard to say because they have three guys really who were like elite scorers at the college level. Lamar Wilkerson one of the best shooters in the country. I think he averaged like 19 or 18 points a game last year. Reed Bailey, who I think may start at center, he averaged 18 points a game. He was like Steph level efficient at Davidson last year, like tying free throw records of Steph's and things like that. And then Tucker DeVries, obviously two-time Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year. He's an elite scorer. He can fill it up. He was shooting 44% on 7 attempts last year before he got hurt. So I think probably one of those guys has the chance to make the best impact. In terms of a long-term impact, I would say somebody like Josh Harris like stands out immediately. The guy was a freshman last year. He doesn't really look like anything Indiana's had on the roster in some time. Doesn't look like he's like post game is super developed, but he's like more of an offensive rebounder, a low post banger, like something completely different. And then Nick Dorn, who I believe is going to be a junior this year, in terms of like an off ball scorer, just another guy who like a lot of the best scorers when you think of them are ball dominant, and he's just somebody who doesn't need the ball in his hands to be dangerous. And so that's a guy who I'm really excited about as well. What is John saying about John? John says John Wooden with UCLA in 64 won the Natty with no starters over 6'5". Abel says, John, it was 1964. Do you think there's any chance that with success at IU in year one, Mullins transfers? I'm not an Indiana guy, so I'm not in those circles. I'm not like I don't follow high school basketball with Hawkeyes, but I follow enough to know that Mullins didn't have any interest in coming to Indiana. I really don't believe that was 100% a Mike Woodson thing. It's hard when the two-time defending national champ looks at you and says, we want to make you the focal point of our team, or if that's what they told him, and you see how many guards they're bringing, like God knows, who knows, right? I'm not ruling it out, but given how emphatically it seemed like he didn't want to be associated with the university, like I don't think a coaching change in 1 year is really going to change that. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I think he's a talented player, and obviously like got to recruit and dominate your state. I think the phone call that DeVries had with the AAU coaches of Indiana, like shortly after he took the job, was a major step in moving in that direction. That being said, like if PK, if you've seen anything regarding any smoke in that direction, let me know, because I haven't seen anything.